Today we join up with the Code and Conquer podcast to discuss motivation in indie hacking. Let's deploy.
Hi everyone, my name's Dan, and today on the show we're running a virtual conference panel on the topic motivation in indie hacking. This is a joint collaboration between the Code and Conquer podcast and also the Push to Prod podcast. We thought we'd get together. Look, since we're syndicating this episode on each other's separate shows, first, some quick introductions are probably in order for listeners. Over to you, Tobias.
Yeah, hi. To all the listeners that don't know me, I'm the guest pretty much, or the single podcast host here. I'm Tobias Arweiler. I'm the host of the Code and Conquer podcast, so where I do interviews with indie hackers from the Twitter community mostly, and we talk about the journey and their products and everything they've experienced on their way. I'm also the founder of the company Iceberg Labs, which we're currently producing an indie hacker project called schreiberling.app. That's the URL as well. And it's an AI copywriting tool, and that's pretty much what we're doing right now. So that's my indie hacker journey, and I'm also following other indie hacker journeys through the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Colin. I'm the co-founder of Userlot, which is a new startup that we kicked off last year around customer success. It's like a CRM for recurring revenue management, and previously ran a GovTech product for about 7 years called Social Pinpoint and exited that in 2019. So yeah, not my first rodeo, but I'll tell you, this is probably my hardest one. So as a result, I'm doing a bit more networking, and hence that's the why we kicked off Push to Prod as a podcast 10 or so episodes ago.
Excellent. And hi everyone, my name's Dan Miller. I'm a lot way behind all the other guys there. Actually, I'm learning to build a SaaS for my first time. I got an opportunity in my own business outside of this where we had a bit of a scratch your own itch situation. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a background in software and I love the idea of building a SaaS. Excellent. I'm diving in. I'm going for it. So I'm learning as I go, and you'll probably hear a little bit of that. And we talk today about motivation. And about today, we're following a panel format. So if you've ever been to a conference, or if you've ever been to some sort of event and you've got, some people sitting together up on the stage, well, that's what we're doing here. We've got a bit of a virtual conference going on, a bit of a virtual panel. So the format's going to be, we've got a set of questions written up, and for each question, we'll go to each panelist, see what they have to say in response. And at the end, we'll wrap up with some key takeaways that you folks listening can hopefully use in your day-to-day indie hacking journey.
Love it. Can I just say thank you, though, as well, for actually putting this together. I think Dan and I wanted to always have some guests on and stuff, so it's been cool to connect with Tobias and do this. So, yeah, just a big thanks before we kick it off.
Yeah, and I love it too. Thank you, Tobias. We sort of met virtually on Twitter because I saw some of your posts going for a while, and then I saw you put your show together, Code and Conquer, and I loved it. And I was like, excellent. I'd love to collaborate here. So what a great opportunity. Thank you, Tobias. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me and for actually putting that up. Dan pretty much did most of the work here. I'm happy to do the collab, and I hope that we can do more collabs with you guys and with other podcasts in the future, because it's just the indie hacking community lives from collaborating and working together and building feedback of each other and stuff. And I love doing this.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, mate.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Awesome. And thanks for the getting up early. I was just about to say, before we get in, I'm already on a red wine. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday. And poor.
Yeah, it's 9 p.m.
It's like
here.
9 a.m. in the
a.m.
morning.
here,
So sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit early for smashing the hard alcohol.
We'll get up
over in
early
Germany.
next time, hey, man. That's
Yep. I will switch it around for every episode. So.
Nice. All right, well, let's get into it, shall we? So the first question we've got on our panel today is, why should we consider motivation in indie hacking? And we thought we'd start with you, Tobias, because this was your topic, motivation. So how about it? What do you think? Why should we consider motivation in indie hacking?
I think it's maybe the most important topic in indie hacking. My podcast usually talks with indie hacker people that have done a lot of work and that have sat on their projects for a long time, that have to work for years to actually get anywhere. So you have a very, very long road ahead of you, usually as an indie hacker. Most people don't make it in like 2 or 3 months. And every episode that we've talked to people or that I've talked to people in that podcast, we have some point where the motivation is very low. We just talked to Maxime Dupre in episode 4, where the Twitter API changes completely killed his business. So losing motivation there would have been probably the normal thing to expect. But for him, he was back in like a week. So there has to be something with motivation that you have to grasp and keep doing. You won't get much praise on the way as an indie hacker. You won't get much feedback. Your family will get tired of the topic at some point. So you have to be motivated yourself and without any external feedback, I guess. And coming with that and the motivation thing, and I've just as a small intro, I'm also doing systemic coaching with a coach regarding my indie hacking and my business stuff and also some private stuff. And coming from that direction, you always have to ask yourself regularly, why are you indie hacking? Like, what's the goal here? And I think that's the thing that you should consider most for motivation. It's perfectly fine to say, I'm just having fun. And if that's the goal, that's awesome, perfect for you. If it's learning new technologies, it's also awesome. If it's, I'm trying to reach a goal of 2000 MRR, that's going to be a motivational barrier sometimes. And you have to be have very long breath to stay in the game.
Very true.
Yeah, so for me, the most important thing is having fun, and being the success is very low. You have to have a very long breath. So that's why you have to talk about motivation. You have to find your own way to motivation and keep the motivation up. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a tough, and like, yeah, as you said, it's the biggest probably one you want to get. I don't know if right's the right word, but I mean, it feels like it to me, it's like having that. Like, I think I described it as being, it's what your goal for the rest, almost like your life is. Like, it's because this is a journey, and I think if you're trying to do something that every day you're going to like be motivated and attack it type thing, then you're going to have these ups and downs that are going to really screw around with that. So you got to have something bigger than just the fact, like you said, like it's not about MRR, it's not about even the current product you're working on. Like, I think the biggest thing is taking us, if you're not into it yet, taking a step back and going, why do I want to build my own stuff? Like, it's bigger than one product or one particular thing you're trying to do at any point in your career. I think some people might be more suited to it than others, maybe, and that sort of helps. But certainly, I think there's that issue around saying, well, how do I, rather than motivate myself, how do I actually just enjoy the journey? And then if I enjoy the journey, what parts do I enjoy? And can I do those parts pretty much every day? And if I do, I don't have to worry about the outcome anymore. I just can do what I'm doing, do what I love, and the outcome will, like the successful outcome will come down the track. I think if you can get to that level, then you're doing the right thing. If you can't, then maybe you shouldn't maybe be doing indie hacking, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I made much sense there, but like, yeah, like trying to, I don't know, what I'm getting at is it's dangerous if you think you have to come up with something that's going to make you get out of bed. Like you should just get out of bed and love attacking the day anyway. No matter if the MRR is 0 or the MRR is, 50 grand.
Nice.
So,
Look, I really love what you guys said there. Tobias, where you sort of said it's a long journey and the chances of success are actually quite variable or sometimes quite low. I fully agree with that. And Cole, I love what you said about, you've got to love it. You got to do it because you love it. I think between the two of those things, that's some of the reasons why I think why should we consider motivation. When we're doing indie hacking, it's probably a very wise thing to self-reflect and just ensure we're doing it for the right reasons. It's also probably quite important to know, what can impact our motivation so that we can deal with it when we do take a knock now and again. If you know how your motivation works and what motivates you, then you can use that to sort of pick yourself back up and keep going if something happens, which inevitably it's going to happen when you're building something, right? Either, what you're building doesn't turn out to be as you thought it would going to be. You're going to face some serious bugs some days or some things that just don't work. Maybe your marketing takes a lot longer than you thought it was going to be, et cetera. There's lots to it. So, knowing what motivates you and how to build on that, it's a very important thing to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, not to totally butt in, but I feel like, and maybe this is because I've done it, you start doing it for a long time, you realize like it comes back to this identity thing, I think. Like if you are this type of person and you like doing it, then you're not tying your identity to the success of your business, the strategy you're doing at the moment, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that it can't knock you down because you're like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm
Yeah.
doing this because of whatever, and that allows you to play the long game. But if you're tying your identity to the fact that this product, you start a new AI thing and it's going to go good, and you've promised your spouse that you're going to make $1 million in whatever it is, and it doesn't go well, then your motivation's going to tank.
Yep.
I think that's a question or a topic that we had on the podcast as well, and where I sometimes don't identify as much as an indie hacker and more as an experimenter, is the exact thing that you, like, defining yourself as an indie hacker. You kind of put the goal of 20k MRR or 50k MRR or whatever on the horizon at least, right? And as long as I just say I'm doing experiments, and if anything of those takes off for some reason and it's awesome and we can build on users and then MRR might come, that's why I'm sometimes more comfortable with the label experimenter or software.
I like that.
Something I'm just
that.
building stuff to test it.
Yeah, it's almost scientific.
And we'll see if it works.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't identify as indie hacker. I don't use that term. I've never been in the indie hacker circles, but I have, but not realizing I have. So I mean, it's I think what your point is there is heaps valid. I like it.
So what we're learning there is labels are not the motivator here. So which does bring us to the next point. What does motivate you to build your own product? So Tobias, what is it? Why do you build your product, and what causes you to get up every morning to do that?
We have notes for this, but I'm going to go the other direction right here. So the most motivating thing to have started indie hacking, to be motivated at the start, and to actually also keep me being motivated, is just using my favorite tech stack. Like when you're like, I'm a freelancer for most of my time, and then you have teams that decide what you're using and what technology and what framework and how you guys are working together, and we have to use Azure for this project, and I'm like, no, I don't like that. And in indie hacking projects, it motivates me a lot that I can just say, this is the framework that I want to use. This is the database I want to use. This is the whole setup that I want to use, the architecture, the deployment stuff, and also being able to experiment on that.
I hadn't thought of that, but you're so right. And it makes perfect sense, because on other jobs for other people, you'll be in maybe a corporate environment or someone else's business, and you are just, that's it. That's what you're stuck with. Actually, it can get quite boring. You can do the same thing, the same boring tech government, whatever corporate tech stacks for ages. So being able to get out there and play with your own stuff is, huge motivator. Okay, I love that. Keep going.
It's pretty much playing with Legos, but you also decide what kind of sets you got and stuff. It's awesome. And also gives you the freedom to work on new stuff, like the big, huge AI wave. You're just like, oh, I could use that in my project, or I can do a new project with AI. And nobody stops you from doing this when you're your own boss, so to say. And but the other thing is also, and I've highlighted this in bold in the notes, is the potential freedom to work on it full time. So that's the other really big thing. If something takes off, if one of the experiments becomes better and you have users using it, and you kind of realize, okay, there's more to this than just a fun project, there comes the potential of working on this full time. And that would be the coolest thing to come out of this journey. It's just not getting like past 1 million MRR. It's not really the goal. The goal is to get past the MRR target where you can just work for this thing. So you don't have to do freelance work. You don't have to find a full-time job because freelance doesn't work right now. You just have to work on your own stuff.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That would be the perfect target to hit for me. And then if the MRR goes rising, perfect, awesome. But the money doesn't make a difference anymore, pretty much. Working on it full time and only having to work for yourself is the biggest motivator.
Beautiful. Nice.
I guess it's probably merging into one of my first ones, which was my first reasons around that is, like, I'm a really bad delegator, so I like to do things my way.
Same.
And so that's probably a little bit of a segue from that. So that's probably definitely the original motivator to go out on my own. And I won't say that was building products, but when I left full-time work to go out as a consultant, even though you're working on other people's stuff, it was like the flexibility to do things your way. And that might not be building, like I said, it might not be the exact tech stack you want, but I can do it at the time I want, when I want to do it. And ironically, hopefully won't get too far in this because I think it's a different podcast, but podcast topic, but I was listening to Bootstraps. I'm catching up on podcasts after my travels. I'm so far behind. And I was listening to Bootstrap Web's one from a couple of weeks ago, Dan, around startups and doing it with kids. Have you listened to that one? Like
Yes.
young kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
Yep.
to talk about that one because there's so many little points in there where I'm like, I agree or I disagree. And one of
Yep.
them is, I think this lifestyle we have is actually very family friendly if you do it right, because you get to call those shots of when you do things, whereas full-time work, the amount of people I know who's full-time work and they get home at 7:00 at night, that's not family friendly at all. That's ridiculous. So I'm like,
Yeah.
so that was one of my biggest motivators. So I pretty much quit full-time job when my second kid was 1. So I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And then my biggest motivator became not so much how do I make money now for them, but how do I build. My other big pet peeve is people worrying about salaries versus net wealth, what's called net worth. And I feel like if you really want to build your net worth, then building products, like the next thing to think about then is how do I build assets, and how do you build assets quick in 2023? It's software. It's what we're doing now, building these products. So it's less about what I take home on a month or a year or MRR and how much value do I have out of this product or business that I'm building. And that's where I might diverge a little bit from you, Tobias, where I'm like thinking not so much about tech stack, but about business stuff. And that's where I start loving the talk about, well, is this business going to be valuable and who would buy it? What would it be valued at and things like that? And that ends up motivating me more so much than what tech I'm using and things, which is funny because I am a tech guy. Like I'm totally tech, 2 degrees in software and stuff like that. But I think that has changed over my time. So
Cool.
I don't know if I answered
Nice.
that, man. But
I love
actually,
it.
I did have one point there, which is leave a legacy. And I guess,
Oh, what do you mean by that?
yeah, so that's one of so I have 4 main lifetime, I don't even call them goals, but they're like 4 things I think about when I set my 10-year, 5-year, 1-year goals. One of them is leaving a legacy. And to me, what that means is when I go or when whatever, there's going to be elements of me around, and it's hopefully in different products that I've left and businesses I've sold that are still by name or by whatever are still running. And I think that's a pretty cool thing to do, that you probably couldn't do 100 years ago, unless you happen to be Henry Ford or something like that. So
Yeah, nice.
anyway, that's another big motivator for me.
Very cool. I've got a combination, really. There's 2 there. One is that I just love building software. I've been doing that since I was a boy. I can remember the first programs that I wrote was with a mate of mine. He had this old machine. It was a clone of an Apple machine, and he had these thick books, and we would get together. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just following the program, and we would write these together, and they'd produce wonderful ASCII art for us. And we were amazed. We were just going, wow, look at these pictures you can create writing software programs.
Did
and
you
I was
type
hooked
them out
from
of the
that day.
book? Is that what it was? Like you literally copied the code out of the book, or
That's
was
it.
it?
You copied the code out of the book.
Exactly.
You didn't know
You
what
get
you were doing.
magazines, and it was like you printed. Yeah,
That was it. And I just fell in love with building software from that day forward. And so I still love it to this day. It's brilliant. And another thing is, look, I've had some success in the past starting and growing service-based businesses, and I know it's possible. So now I want to try the challenge again, but I want the same success with a product-based business. That's what's driving me. That's why I want to build here. And, I just love the experience of building my own thing. Like you guys said, choosing my own adventure. It's fun. It's energizing. It's rewarding. I've got complete autonomy. I can visualize a better future for myself, despite, how realistic or not that vision is. And that's the dream that motivates me, really. So, yeah.
But don't you reckon, like, I don't know if you guys experience this, but for people who aren't in the community, like what we do, and they're just regular, and I feel bad saying it this way, but they're just, they do regular jobs, 9 to 5, whatever it is. Whenever you hear them talking, if you hear them complaining, which I'm not saying, everyone bitches about their work, most of the time they're complaining about things that they just can't control because someone else is putting the stuff on them. And I love this, that it's total ownership. Like there's just as much to complain about with what we do, but it's our fault. It's
That's
like
right.
I
yeah.
mean, another thing about like I think we all doing consulting work on the side or as a main job, right? But the one thing in freedom there is that you can always go, you know what, this project is not for me. I'm going to leave
Yep.
this.
Yep.
And it's not a huge deal, right? Like I can tell, like I'm usually working through an agency that does all the recruiting stuff for me. And I always have a 1 month
Yeah. Cool.
cancellation
Yep.
period with them. So if if the project is absolutely horrible, you can always go, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
like end of the month, I'm gone.
Yeah.
And you can't really do this when you're full time. You have to find something else. You have to, like, if you have kids, it's way harder than for me. And having no kids is very, very much the easy path for indie hacking and also freelancing. And
Cool.
but having this freedom is awesome on the freelancer side. And in the indie hacking side, you pretty much have all the control.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and the responsibility, which is going to, if you're not that type of person to take that on, then you maybe shouldn't do it. But I think most people who are in this, business recognize that. I hope the ones that are successful recognize that and go, yep, well, the buck stops with me. And you learn so much, not about the business, but about yourself doing it. So.
Yeah. So far we've talked about, the positives, what's drawing us and what's bringing us forward. Let's talk a little bit now about some of the detractors of that. So the next question we've got are there things that possibly reduce your motivation? And if so, what are they and how do you deal with them? So this could actually be quite a deep question, this one. Over to you, Tobias.
I'm going to pick up on something that Colin just said. He said that he enjoys the business side more now. That's how I heard it. I'm going to disagree on that. And I think that that's one thing that can reduce my motivation. Right now, we're in a phase for Schreiberling, for the new app, where I can't really go on software developing there. I have to wait for a design that my girlfriend, who is a UX designer, will do. And in the meantime, I have to do stuff like marketing, and we're doing more user interviews. We want to do more of those to create a better project. We are thinking about government funding. We are partaking in startup competitions where we might get money or support or networking opportunities. And on a little scale, that's okay. And I think that indie hacking or indie hackers should think more about stuff like startup competitions, funding from the government and stuff, because at least in Germany, there is a lot of stuff you can get and it will be worth your time, but it's not software development. So and as an engineer at heart, I'm having trouble sometimes getting there.
Yeah, I get it exactly. Even though it's probably changed a little bit for me, but yeah.
Well, what do you do about that, Tobias, when it happens? Like, how do you deal with that sort of situation?
The advice that you always get, or that you often get on Twitter and stuff in the indie hacking bubble, is that you should just concentrate on one thing. Like, just push your project and do, like, the one day you have in the week, do like 14 hours of work in just that project and concentrate on nothing else. Focus. And I don't think that works for me. And I think that one thing that works for me, if I'm stuck with my main project, or I have to wait there, or I have to do work there that is necessary and I have to do it, to balance that, sometimes I'm just spinning up a greenfield project. Just pick a new framework that I wanted to try, or a stupid idea that I have like intelligent ideas that I know maybe there's a market, and then I have ideas where I'm like, nobody will buy this. Nobody.
It's going to come out. Your success is going to come out of that list, eh?
Yeah, probably. For example, I had a project still in mind, which I will use if I'm getting too frustrated this time, where I just will build different levels of, you have to click a button on a page. And then the first level is just a button in the middle, and you have to click it. And the second level, it moves. And the third level, it disappears and comes somewhere else again. Nobody will pay for this, but it will make me happy, and it will be a greenfield project where I can just do software development work.
Very cool.
And having something like this, putting the fun back into the project is always important.
Nice move.
Not putting the fun back on the back burner for too long.
Yeah. And like, I guess what you're saying there, though, is just a bit of diversity. Like, it's always good to, and like, yes, you should do one thing at once in that regard. But I think my view, I'm shocking at it. I've always had a million things on the go. And, I had to do some mindset thing once, and it was like, Google Google 5 images that represent yourself. And it's like, I picked someone with 5 arms juggling like a million balls like that. Like that's generally what I am. However, reality is, as long as you can sit down and focus for X bit of time, whether or not it's 1 hour, 3 hours, whatever. And I think as you get older is not the right word, but as you get sort of more in connection with who you are and your body and whatever, you'll find what time that's better suited. But if you're doing that, if you know you can do that, then you can have a heap of things on the go. You just need to know when to focus on that particular one, any particular one. And then it helps then to have those varying projects. So like if you love development, use that to refresh yourself when you're having to do the government grant, fund application, which is just draining your soul to do, because you'll eventually get back to the other thing. And as long as you know how to do that, you can just push through all the other things, I think, which is important, because it is important. I think at the end of the day, if you're running an indie like if it's just even just you or whatever, at the end of the day, you want this thing to succeed. And to succeed, it's going to be more than just building product. It's going to be this is where I've meant it's going to be building a business. Like when I've got really good family friends who are running a psychology business, a physio business. And to me, it's exactly the same bloody thing. Like, yes, you're a psychologist. Yes, you're a physio. But when you start this journey, you have to transition to someone who loves running a business, not being a physio or a psychologist or whatever. Because if you do that, you might as well just go get a job. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to be,
Yep.
So that's the bit I think I've found, and I've graduated from that. Like I've eventually gone from someone who still loved to do the dev, and I still love to do the dev, but I'm like, what really motivates me now is this cool idea that I can build this business that once it's successful, hopefully Uselot is, it's going to pay people's mortgages. It's going to make people have families that like do all this stuff because I put this thing out in the world. I think that's so motivational to me, rather than worrying about the tech or any individual
In reverse,
thing.
though, what demotivates you, Colin?
I know, we just talked about that. Yeah. Sorry, I'll switch around. I didn't answer the question. Well, look, I'll tell you, like, because it's business, not making money. Like, I'll just that can really demotivate me. I know I'm still very tethered to how much money I make per month or per year, which it goes against building what I just talked about before about building assets and stuff like that. And so I recognize, I can feel it in my mood. And this year is a bit different because I've deliberately stepped away from making money to build this product. And I've never done that before. I've consulted heaps. I still do a bit of consulting, but not as much. And so now I'm like, yeah, I can feel that I can struggle like that. I'm building something that's making no money. And that to me can start going, should I just go back to doing consulting? So yeah, that type of thing. So that can definitely demotivate me.
Fair enough.
The other thing is shiny object syndrome, which is probably a little bit like Tobias was saying, where it's like, hang on, I've started all this stuff here, but this other thing over here looks heaps cool, so I'm going to go off and do that
every day.
Yeah, and so that I don't know if it's motivating for the new thing I'm doing, but whatever I was doing before isn't getting the love that it probably should. So that can happen to me a bit as well.
Cool.
What about you, Dan?
No worries.
I don't know if I answered that, but
mine is a little bit more personal. I'm pretty well aware now what demotivates me. And funnily enough, it's actually not the work. It's not the building products. It's not working with software. It's actually my physical well-being. I know for sure that if I don't sleep properly or if I'm dehydrated, and I'm shocking at that, I slump in terms of motivation. Yeah. I've been able to figure it out over the years. I'm just going, man, I'm not feeling it today. What's going on? And I'll put 2 and 2 together and I'll go, I had a shocking sleep last night. Or, haven't done enough exercise recently, or I just haven't drunk enough water. And so, yeah, I always try to get, about 7 or 8 hours sleep each night if I can. And
for that,
look,
2 liters.
There's Cole's got a bottle. For those that are listening in, and I'm shocking at it. Tobias and Colin have just held up on the screen in front of me their own water bottles sitting there right next to them, whereas I've got nothing. I'm constantly forgetting to drink enough water.
I'm also terrible at it. That's why I just always have this full, and I have to empty it like 2 or 3 times a day. So then I'm perfect, and I have the same problem. Like there's a German doctor who's also a comedian who also says if you have a motivational problem or if you feel tired, and even though you've slept enough, I'll always ask those questions like, when's the last time you've eaten? When's the last time you slept perfectly? When's the last time you've drank something? And then mostly one of those is not or is misaligned. And if you fix that, mostly you're going to feel better.
Well, you mentioned another one there, and stress. That's one that I definitely know knocks my motivation. I'm working outside of building my own thing. So we mentioned earlier, I am consulting basically full time, and my wife and I also run a business. And so occasionally things happen outside of my control that cause a bit of stress. And when it happens, I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my mind. And I lose motivation.
Is that like being
for
blocked
that,
from a government service that you said the other day?
Yeah, you heard about that. Tobias, one thing we mentioned recently is one of the government departments we have to deal with for our business blocked us. They IP blocked us, and it took me days to figure out what was causing it. That stressed me out.
Okay.
So yeah, look, it's hard to prevent stress. You never know what's going to happen. So when it does happen, I just find that taking a break from things and switching to something else completely different, it works for me.
Yeah.
I'll go for a walk, I'll do something in nature. I'll go out in the backyard. It's that sort of thing. And surprisingly, it works pretty well. So that's the situation for me.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I've changed my tune. Like I used to work, like I used to feel guilty, like going out and doing, squishing in a walk or a run or whatever. And, these days I walk 3.5 Ks every morning plus run probably 5 times a week plus start. Like I'm getting to, I literally, one of my goals at the beginning of the year, which I haven't hit yet, but I want to hit at some point over the next few years, is doing 10% of my day spent doing moving and exercise. And that's 2 and a bit hours of whatever it is, unapologetically, because I think it's so bloody important.
It works. Yeah.
I was working for a startup a few years ago. Not really a startup, a very, very small agency, but it was very, very new. And I was at the beginning, I was one of 3 employees counting the founders. And we actually had problems with this where the CEO was working 14 hours a day. When I came in at 8 in the morning, he was there.
Wow.
And if I left in 6 or something in the evening, he was still there. And I got emails at 11 at night from the office. And the thing is that the 14 hours that he put in was not productive work. It's I just fixed the stuff that he broke the evening before in the morning. So don't do that, and instead don't even target 8 hours of productive work. It's okay to do 4, 5, 6, and but go out for a walk in the middle of that, or just do your sports in the end of the day, like I do. But more than that, it's not productive. It's not efficient. As a German, I know a lot about efficiency, and to go into a stereotype a bit. And but you have to have this other part of your life, be it friends or family or sports or eating healthy or sleeping enough. It's gonna depend so much on your business is going to depend on you taking care of yourself.
Totally. That takes us to a good segue to one of our later questions, actually. We'll stick at it. It's related to, work-life balance. So while we're on that, why don't we keep going? How do you manage your work-life balance as an indie hacker? So Tobias, what strategies do you use to prevent burnout and to maintain a healthy lifestyle?
So I'm not a great role model here, and I feel that Colin is the better role model.
Don't say that.
So a little of context. When I was working for the startup, I actually had developed an anxiety disorder, which I'm still working through today. So that's going to be a struggle for probably the rest of my life. So, but when you have this disorder, or when you've lived through it and have gone into therapy for it, you kind of start noticing when your body is starting to break down. So I'm talking about somatic issues where your stress level is so high that your body starts reacting to it.
Can I ask, was that obvious, or it was just happening and you didn't know it was stress? I guess is the question. You don't have to go into any specifics, but do you know what I mean? Sometimes you can be stressed and not know it, or sometimes you can be stressed and know it.
I pretty much, I didn't I didn't know what was the reason for that. I started getting panic attacks, right? So I didn't know at the beginning what was the issue. And if you take a look at it today, like with hindsight, the panic attacks were just one more symptom. I had just had those stress symptoms for pretty much my whole study years, like my master's and my bachelor's. I already had problems with my stomach. I just didn't connect it to any stress, right? And then my buddy went, okay, he doesn't listen to that, so we're going to go to the heart next.
Turn it up.
So yeah, and to manage this work-life balance, you kind of get forced to do it at some point if you notice that your body starts breaking down. What I'm trying to do and not always succeeding is always look through all of the projects that you're doing. And if you notice that it's just too much, you notice that you're too tired at the end of the day, you have to cut some of those projects.
Yep.
There's no other solution. If you're working too much, you have to work less.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'm doing, but that's like the most important thing, you have to cut your work down so
good
you're
advice.
less stressed.
Yeah.
And there's just no way around it. But other than that, to have some kind of balance, let's say, I have my cat, I have my girlfriend, and it's also been kind of a tradition for both of us that we just pick up the cat 4 or 5 times a day and just cuddle with it for 5 minutes. She loves that, as she's a single cat in our household, and she also doesn't go out. She's dependent on a lot of interaction with us, and we love it as a cool down from work.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly endorse animals. I think I wrote that in my note. Even though they're also the cause of stress sometimes. But yeah.
Other than that, it's just family, friends. What I think works, but shouldn't be your whole thing, like the only thing that you're doing. For me, gaming works.
Oh yeah.
Like if I just want to shut off my brain, it's okay to go 4 hours into Battlefield and just shoot virtual enemies.
Yeah.
It's just not it shouldn't be the one solution.
Yeah.
It has been in the past for me, and it doesn't work.
Because you're sitting in front of the computer the whole time, then I guess. Is that
exactly? Yeah. So the other thing that I'm doing right now, which we're trying to get back into, and right now we have the discipline actually, is cycling and running again. Definitely has a positive mental influence on both of us. Also helps with the weight, I guess. I hope. And like you said earlier, Colin, going out into it was Dan, going out into nature and doing the sports stuff and moving. It's what we are made to do as humans.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to get back into that, and it works for motivation and for positive mental and physical health.
Yeah.
Of
I'm
course.
glad you've over the years sort of been able to figure that out and notice those signs and have some tactics there to deal with them. It's wonderful to hear. And we all go through all that sort of thing in our own way. And I'm sure, I've, like I said before, it was times in the past where I was receiving stress and feeling stress, which made me understand the symptoms of stress and know when to pick up on them and deal with them. So yeah, absolutely. I can empathize with you there for sure.
Yep.
Colin, how about you, mate? Like, what sort of things do you use to prevent burnout?
Yeah, well, I'll tie on to that. I mean, I got when was it the first? I can't remember if it was my first. Like, I've got 2 daughters. I can't remember if it was the first or the second one where I ended up over a number of years. I ended up to the point where I thought I was sick. Like I thought I had kidney problems. I thought all this sort of stuff, and I went to the doctor, and it was almost comical because he looked at me and went, I know what it is, but I'll get you all tested anyway. And like he, went through a full blood test, all that. And he went, yeah, you just probably suffer from mild anxiety all the time. It just makes you everything feels sick. And like I literally had a meeting. I remember one meeting I had where some big client came up. We were in the room and I just had to leave. Like I felt I was dying, almost had to leave. It was just a flight instinct kicking in. Like I just had to get out of the office. And it was my first mental trip where once I learnt it, I went, I'm not sick. And like literally overnight, I think 90% of the symptoms just died. But ever since, and that was 20 years ago, whatever, or 15 years ago, I still sometimes have those things where like sometimes I'll like, almost feel like I'm fainting and things like that. But literally I know it's because I don't feel stressed. If people come and talk to me, I don't think most people would ever say, Colin gets stressed. But the reality is, it obviously is. It's just you hold it well. And as a result, it comes out some other way, which is usually your body going, hang on, stop doing what you're doing. And so, yeah, then I actually did put on a bit of weight, like you do in your early, I don't know, mid-20s, you're just eating more and doing stuff. And I, originally got my girlfriend who became my wife, and I remember I think it was a Boxing Day, we both looked at each other and went, we need to do something. And then I started running, and I wouldn't even call it running. It was like, I had a 60-meter driveway, like up a hill, and I used to just go up and down that, and then eventually I started running. And that was again 15, 14 years ago. And to this day, I run and I'm not even I'm not a good runner. I don't run fast, but it's just like the one non-negotiable. People talk about you don't rise to the levels of your, what is it? I can't remember the saying. It's like you don't rise to the levels of
Incompetence.
whatever. You fall to the level of your systems or your habits. Like it's called raising your tides. It's like if you look at the tide. This is another thing I learned through these mindset things. I mean, like if you think about tides, it's not about how high something is, it's how high the lowest point is. And so it's trying to lower that. You want to raise that lower part. And so my view of that is I've definitely done that in my life with things like running, for example. Like it's just non-negotiable. I don't care what country I'm in, what the temperature is, whatever, I will run X amount per week. And it's those things that I think have helped me maintain a better lifestyle, which then makes me healthier, which is then this whole work-life balance just kicks in because you've got the energy to do stuff. And so it's finding those things that you go, if I can change that part about my life and make it my identity and non-negotiable that I'm going to do that thing, everything else lifts up, and it's the same, like I just said, with animals and stuff. There's certain things that I could never be a petless household. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though they shit me off sometimes, we just like animals they just transform you. Obviously kids and all that too, but they'll move on. And I think, so it's those things that have helped me maintain a sense of purpose and balance and stuff, and everything else could be out of whack and you can do 20 hours of work one day and not. But yeah, that's helped me, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, hopefully maintain a bit of balance.
There's probably a common theme there. Animals are in our house as well. I've got a lovely dog.
Yeah.
He's now,
There you go.
I think he's about 11 years old, but every day I'll be out there. I'll go and give him a pat and just say g'day and hang out with him for a bit. And I try to walk him every day as well. What else do I do to, build with that balance is I ride my bike a lot to get around town. I used to drive around a lot, but I've found that just riding, once you set yourself up and you've got the equipment and you know how to use it, it's pretty easy just to get on the bike. So that helps a lot. What else? I exercise at home every so often when I can. And I'm often doing the home maintenance, so gardening or whatever's needed in there around the house. And that's the sort of stuff. And if I throw those into the mix, then I find that I enjoy building my product more. I've got the ability to get out there, but when I'm in there too long, like you said, Tobias, you can't be productive all the time. So those are the things that I do to balance it.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say with that, like we work a mental job, like, you know what I mean? Like it's not, so this idea that you have to be sitting and like how many times, it's so cliched, you're in the shower, you bang, you think of the problem, or you go to bed, you think of the solution, sorry. And so it's so important to stop this idea of thinking that you have to be in front of a computer to be working on your business.
No, that's
it's
right.
like
some of the best ideas come when you're not.
Part.
You walk away and you solve that problem intrinsically or subconsciously. Yeah, for sure. And that's some of the things I've got to be careful of as well, though, because I mentioned that I am balancing working the full-time consulting at the moment, and I'm building stuff in my spare time. So you'll find that I'm doing mornings, early mornings, and then evenings, and then I hang out with the family for a bit, and then late nights and
posting on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got to be careful. But the way I do it is anytime my family seems like they're up for doing something. So, they'll get home and there'll be a moment where they'll go, "Hey, you want to do this?" My answer is yes, default.
Yes.
Do you want to watch a movie? Yes. Want to play a board game together? Yes. Shall we go and hang out with these people over there? Yes. So that's how I deal with it. I always give them priority for sure. Yeah. And it works. I'm enjoying it at the moment.
Yeah, and I've, the good and bad bits of this sort of stuff. Like, obviously, I've gone through the years of. Actually, I went away with my wife last Friday night, the first time I think ever that we've ever done it without kids for a while. But I also didn't take a computer. Like I took an iPad so we could watch some, like we watch shows in bed, but it's so hard to break that habit of, like, years ago with Social Pinpoint, like for at least a lot of it, I was the only one who could do, the DevOps stuff. And if it crashed, you had to, so when you went on these family holidays overseas, you had to have your laptop. Um, and so you do have these weird things where it's like encroaching on that family time. But at the same time, I was like you, man, where I'm like, I didn't miss a kid's thing at school and all that stuff because I was available. Like the default answer was always,
Yeah.
yep. And I'll work out how to fit the other stuff
Yeah.
in later, even if it means I have to stay
That's
up.
it. Like you won't get those moments back. So you got to take them when you can get them. And
Yep.
look, speaking of getting the moments back and working a lot, I noticed that when I mentioned how I've got to work full time at the moment, and Colin, you said some of your motivations is financial, and Tobias, you sometimes balance a bit of work and a bit of consulting on your own thing. How do you guys balance the need for financial stability with the desire to pursue that passion as an indie hacker? What do you do, Tobias?
So for me, I think it's the most easy answer, but I think all our answers will probably be a little similar,
Yeah.
as we're all contractors. So for now, I'm doing freelance 4 days a week. When we started last year, I've worked for 3 different agencies before, and then last January we both quit our jobs at the same agency, where we also started knowing each other and started dating. And we both didn't want to work there anymore, went into freelancing. And then we started, of course, with 5 days, because then you just have to push into financial stability and have some money on the side before you start doing fun projects again. Before that, I did 4 days a week at that last agency. And now, since April, I'm back to 4 days a week freelancing. I won't probably reduce this more for the foreseeable future. So for me right now, Monday is the Indie Hacker Day.
Brilliant.
So if you look at Twitter, I'm mostly active on Mondays.
There we go.
Because I have the time, and that's where what my week looks right now. If, and that's a big if, one of the hacker projects takes off, my way of still having some stability, because I'm a little safety concerned myself, and I'm not the biggest. Like, it was hard to get to be a freelancer in the beginning as well, and so I need some stability still. I would go the route of going from 4 days to 3 days to 2 days,
Brilliant.
and then maybe
Yep.
one day, if that's possible, before the business carries itself.
Yep.
And if I can see that the MRR is stable and healthy and at a level where we can sustain with the government taxes and stuff, then I would consider going to full time.
Very cool.
But as of now, it's 4 days freelancing work and 1 day of indie hacking, and that's probably one it's going to stay for a while.
Yeah,
it's a wise move.
Yeah, look, that mimics what I've generally done as well in terms of Social Pinpoint. Was a side hustle while I did contracting, and then eventually it became big enough. But I'll admit, I contracted still while all the way through. So the only time I didn't was after I sold Social Pinpoint, and I worked as a CTO at the company that bought it, because they could easily pay a salary of a CTO, basically. When I owned Social Pinpoint, I never wanted to pay myself what you would probably get as a CTO, because I valued having the money, in the company more. And to me, I don't regret any of that. And I've always thought, like, I don't know, what do I write in these things? Yeah, to me, it was like non-negotiable. Like, I've never sacrificed my family's money for these products. Like, I've always thought, I don't know, I thought to myself, if I was working somewhere else, what would I earn? So therefore my consulting and my startup needs to at least earn that. And if that meant me doing other work and then buying a cheaper consultant to do other bit of my business, I would rather do that, because my view of this thing is like, what's my most useful thing? And sometimes in the early days it is working on your startup, but sometimes it's not, because it's so not value. Like, this thing you've got might not be worth anything. So why are you if you can earn whatever, values are all different, but if you can earn a really good contracting rate at doing what you do, why not do that and, use a bit of that money to actually fund your side hustle in the bits that maybe you don't want to do either.
Yeah.
I think that's very valid. Like, again, it's these and not prescriptive, and everyone's got their own answers to things. But I think there's some value there because you can have the financial stability and still be able to validate, going back to my idea of building a business, build up and validate a new asset that will grow in time and become valuable. And eventually either you jump into it or maybe you sell it, whatever, you know. So it's not all about just how do I make my business make enough money where I can go full time in it, because maybe you don't ever want to go 100% full time in one thing, because I mean, it's fun to have, I don't know, fingers in lots of pies, I think.
Very good. There's
The only time people will want you to really focus 100% on your startup is if you've taken someone else's money. Otherwise, it's like, why not have a bit of flexibility? Anyway,
brilliant.
that's
Well, that sounds like there's a common theme there, and I reckon I've got the similar one. Where Tobias, you said you want to make sure you've got enough coming in from your day-to-day work, and then eventually, if you can match that a little bit, then you can trade one day here for one day over on yours. And Colin, you've also mentioned how, you know, you've had the ability over time to balance off making sure that you've got the income coming in and making sure it doesn't drop before that certain level. I'm probably in the same mode so as you guys. Like it's at the forefront all of my mind all the time. I think in terms of trains. It's a weird analogy, but I think I'm on a moving train, all right, which is my current consulting income and my business income. It doesn't make sense for me just to jump off of that train and land on the platform and earn nothing. It makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I've got to get that other train moving side by side with me. So if I want to jump from one carriage to the other train, they're both moving at a similar pace. Otherwise, the opportunity cost is just too high. You do hear, and this is, you're potentially in this world, Colin. Some people actually do get themselves to a point where they've had a bit of success and they've got the ability to then pick and choose what they do in the day. And so I think we're all on that journey in some way, shape or form in life, right? So in the early days, you know, you've got to work, you've got to earn the income, and or you have some sort of success with your business. Then you have the ability to then drop off a bit of your time and do more of your own thing. And I think to some extent, we're all at some end of that spectrum, right? So yeah, you hear stories about people online. They're just now they've had a good success. They've had an exit, or they've had several, and they're just doing whatever they want now. And I think we all aspire to be there, but in some way, shape, or form, we kind of all are. So yeah.
And I think, like, recognizing that, like, as you said, it's a spectrum and everyone's on their different, there's no right answer. Like,
that's what I mean.
this is probably a whole different podcast topic, which I think, damn, we should do. But I do think, like, there's this, because, like, yes, I have, like I got, like, this year's the first year where I'm deliberately not doing what I just said, which is like, I'm not earning as much. Like, it's funny, I've got because our financial year in Australia ends, as you guys, well, damn well know, in June. I do my taxes so I've only just logged my tax from last year, like the last June. And usually I wouldn't even be doing this tax year until next May. But because this year's so different, because I aren't, like, the last 5 months haven't earned hardly anything, I've said to my accountant, I think we should actually meet before June because I want to find out. And I sold a couple of assets, and also it's all weird at the moment. But at the same time, I'm still in this weird mode where I'm like, well, I need to be making, like, you're still in this weird mode where it's like, I need to make a certain amount every month. And you're like, well, do I, should I not? And so it's a really weird thing. But then at the same time, and Dan, you might be closer to this too. Like, my kids are 14 and 16. So they're nearly at this age where this idea that when you have kids, it takes all your time up, it's becoming less for me. Like, I can see it in another year, it's going to be far less because my oldest is driving around doing her own thing. And then I feel like there comes my power, because not only have I, built up enough assets where I don't, like, owe much or I don't owe anything, I also don't have any responsibility. And plus then it becomes, I don't know, I feel like there's a very powerful thing as a middle-aged guy, running a startup, that you can become quite powerful when you're like, okay, I have no responsibility and no, like, what do you call it, debt or whatever.
Yeah.
Even if I don't have a lot of income coming in, I have a shit ton of time and experience to do something. So I don't know, what I'm getting at there is you don't have to do a startup when you're young. I think at some point there's some validity to saying, hey, you can do it and succeed when you're a bit
Very
older.
good.
Hopefully,
I think
we'll see.
I'm on the other side, right? I think I'm the youngest here. I just turned 30 this year.
Certainly got more hair than me. So,
Yeah, it's gonna change. Believe me, if you see my dad, it's actually gonna change 100%. But the thing for me is I admire everyone in the indie hacker space that is able to do anything while having children that are less old than 14, 15. Because it's fucking insane how much time it takes. And then having the stability, like the mental stability to still do work on the side. Props to everyone who does that, because it's far easier for me just having a girlfriend and a cat to look after. You still have a lot of free time. Most of that before indie hacking was spent gaming, so it's more productive now.
Yeah.
But we still have 100% freedom to do whatever we want and how much we want. And everyone in the indie hacker space who has children that are young, I can't believe how hard that is, because I'm struggling now with motivation and time. I have too many projects and stuff, and having 2 children on top of that would probably be insanity.
Yeah,
a bit too much.
Well,
and it's fine to do it at the right time. Like you said, everyone's different. So,
well, speaking of time, we're getting close to sort of hitting the hour mark. So I might just move to one of our other ones, which is imposter syndrome. We're talking about success here. We're talking a little bit about, how we balance the need for income and things like that. But what do we do if we find that it's not happening and then we get those self-doubts creep in? Do you guys ever get that? I do. Honestly, I'm a bit hard on myself.
I think you have it even if it is happening or not happening.
Yeah.
I don't think that's relevant. It's like, I think you just have it anyway.
I'm actually pretty hard on myself. Sometimes I'll get frustrated when it's taken a while for me to get something done. Maybe I'm finishing a new feature, or I'm fixing a bug, or I'm just waiting for something to progress. And I'll sort of, you hear those voices in your head where you sort of say, what's going on, man? What's taking you so long? And then other times you'll see other people doing things online and you'll think to yourself, geez, I wish I was part of that, so-called successful crowd, whoever they are. Or, I wish I could just produce stuff faster. But it's not helpful. So these sort of thoughts, my tactic around that, that imposter syndrome, that little voice inside your head saying, come on, I just try to avoid closely following huge accounts on social media too often. I try to avoid comparing myself to others. I'm pretty comfortable in my own 2 feet, so that helps. And I just acknowledge that other people who have made it, so to speak, they just got started a lot earlier than I did. That's fine. We've each got our own strengths and constraints.
You've got your own journey.
Yeah, we each achieve things on our own journey in our own time. So I've got a pinned tweet on my Twitter profile. If anyone's looking at it, I'm at Mr. Dan Miller. And it basically says this, if you like a challenge, have a go at starting a SaaS. There is so much to do, so much to learn, so much to figure out. Just treat it like a game. It's got many levels, and, have a go at completing each level at a time to get to the next one. Don't worry about the imposter syndrome. Just have fun. That's my approach to it. How about you, Tobias?
Yeah.
I really like the game analogy there. I think I'm doing something very similar. I think I'm also seeing it as a game. Like, as children or as teenagers and young adults, we played a lot of strategy games, board, and a lot of video games. Like Age of Empire 2 was the hottest shit of all time. And taking that approach, like I've also played pen and paper role plays for 10 or 15 years, both as a player and as a dungeon master, which is the guy that sets everything up.
Awesome.
If anyone listening doesn't know that.
Oh man, massive fantasy person.
We played like Dungeons and Dragons and Cyberpunk, Shadowrun stuff. And if you play a lot of those games, especially if you have a group that has a lot of socializing play in it, like you talk to a lot of players in the game and computer people, so to say, and you can take the same approach with indie hacking and with a lot of stuff in general. Like, we had a business meeting with some might be angel investors 2 or 3 days ago, and if you go in there and go like, this is a game, and if I'm losing pretty much nothing. Like, I'm not game over. I still go out of this room either way. it's more fun to do it that way. And another thing, I think I have improved in the imposter syndrome department a lot in the last 1 or 2 years with the freelancing experience, because you meet so many people that are very, very good at their job. Like you're 100% sure that working with this person, you're going to be fine and they know what they're doing. And if you have some coffee time with them, or if you have some low impact time at work with them and you have time to talk about other stuff, you always notice that those people are struggling as well. They're all learning. They're all doing something wrong. They're never 100% right with the stuff that they're doing. And recognizing that pretty much no one has figured it out is helpful a lot. Like nobody's perfect, and just do your thing, and you're okay.
Beautiful.
That is my motto. I should have put that on my tweet. So I don't think anyone knows what they're doing. Like, it's so like, and I reckon even if you went like to SpaceX, half of them would say, I don't know, like the stuff launches, I don't even know. Like not one person would know how it all, you know what I mean? Like no one knows how it all works. And okay, that might be exceptional with things like that, but I think majority of people who work day to day, they're just trying to figure it out. And I think, but as a freelancer and stuff, I definitely had those issues where, because you tend to I think this is right, but I think most people who are doing what we do are generalists, not specialists.
Yep.
And then when you freelance, you run into some of the specialists. So it can knock you around a little bit because you think, oh man, they know so much more about this thin slice of whatever, because they can sit there for 40 or 30 hours a week and get paid a good amount just to worry about one thing. And so they get really good at it. And so you go, oh crap, I don't know enough about CSS like they do. And they know all this sort of stuff and I have no idea. So that can really knock you around as a dev, I reckon. Like at least it did in my early days. And when I built Social Pinpoint, the first few developers I hired, I was starting to go, oh shit, what are they going to think about me? Because I'd built a product. And that was my first web app too. So there was so many things wrong with it. But then over time I realized, you know what, I do know what the hell I'm doing. I might not implement it the right way all the time, but what I can do better than most people is forecast what we should actually spend our time on. Like we shouldn't waste our time on this, or if we try that, that's a cool tech, but if we use it right now, it's going to fuck us over in about 6 months. Like, because we don't know, whatever it is, and you have this gut feel because you're not just thinking about the tech, you're thinking about all the other stuff. How are we going to support it? How much is it going to cost when it runs? What happens if it scales? What happens if it blows up in the middle of the night? Like all this sort of stuff. And it's just naturally happening in the back of my head. And that's when I think, I do have imposter syndrome, but on the flip side, I need to learn to trust my gut a bit more, even now, and go, hang on, like I know what I'm talking about in some of this stuff, So it's a weird, you're always battling it, like all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Well, I'm sure we all suffer from it, but sounds like we've got a few tactics there to deal with it. Given that we're sort of heading towards the end of the hour now, I thought it'd be worth we jump over to maybe one of our community questions. What do you think? We put the call out on Twitter, and I think Tobias was the successful one there. He got a response from Matthias. Is that right?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
So we got a response from Matthias Neumeier, and he basically said, "Look, great idea on this topic of motivation." And he wanted to know, look, one topic that is important. Despite all the great content out there on social media and especially around indie hacking, there's also a lot of bullshit on Twitter, especially regarding insane MRR postings. And for those that are listening who don't know what MRR is, that's monthly recurring revenue. That's all about the dollars that you're getting into your business. So Matthias called it out and he said you can easily get distracted by that and maybe lose some motivation. So what do you guys think about that?
I actually, if I can start, Colin, I made a joke Twitter tweet I think 2 weeks ago, where I went, where I copied that insane posting stuff and all of the emojis and you playing with high numbers, and I did a tweet that was something like, I'm earning $10,000 with my indie hacker business. Here, like with the pointing down emoji. This is how it breaks down on my projects, and it's like 3 of my indie hacker projects with $0 on it, and then freelancing $10,000. And I think a few people do this. I have seen some Twitter accounts where they have like a design studio, and then that's making $12K a month. Awesome for you guys, right? It's also an awesome number. I'm happy for you. But putting that into indie hacking is stupid.
Yeah.
I think I'm doing $0 right now. That's my indie hacking revenue. And actually, for the MRR posting or boasting in general, I have muted accounts that are very, very popular, that everyone, if I would name them, everyone here would know them. I have muted those accounts if they're doing it too much, not because I hate them or I don't want them to be successful. I just get so distracted and so demotivated by it, especially if they're making money with a seemingly easy product. That might not be the case in the background, right? But looking at that every day and just like going, okay, this guy is doing like 15K MRR after 2 months. It's so demotivating. I can completely understand Matthias's feedback here, and so I'm actually muting accounts like this.
Cool.
When I'm getting too distracted. It's not that I hate them. It's not that I block them or something. It's just I don't want to read this right now. It might be different if I have my own MRR someday.
Yeah. Good calls. What about you, Cole?
Yeah, like,
what do you think about it?
Yeah, no, totally. And I'll circle right back to my first point, which I technically have never really identified as an indie hacker. I know the term, I just never really realized that I probably do resonate a lot with it. So I never really haven't followed it massively until this year that I started really like connecting to that build in public hashtag and all that sort of stuff. And then I realized this was, I knew about Baremetrics in the early days and people would post all their stuff and I thought it was interesting. But to me, and I think I've said it before somewhere, either on Twitter or whatever, like to me, it's so boring.
Yeah.
Like I don't give a shit what you earn because it depends on the product and like what space you're in. Like a lot of the ones I'm interested in are high annual contracts anyway. And then therefore, if I get one sale, like I get a $20,000 sale, cool. I can put a 1677, whatever it is, bloody MRR. Well, no, 20,000 on that. Whatever it is, MRR straight away.
Yeah.
But that doesn't actually mean I'm making that much every month. So would rather see what people are actually doing and the problems they're having and stuff rather than worrying about it. And I know people then come back going, yeah, we should build in public, we should post our stuff. And I'm like, the finances are so far the bottom of the rung in terms of importance, motivation, what I can learn from. I can't learn from you anything. When you tell me your MRR, it does not help me make a decision tomorrow at all.
Yeah, cool.
But if you share with me something about whatever it is, some marketing thing you picked up or some ChatGPT prompt that you came up, that actually helps me. Like
that's a brilliant,
let's share that shit.
Brilliant response to that.
Not worry about.
That's very good advice.
Yeah, let's not worry about it's so vanity. It's bullshit. And it's not that I don't want to see it either. I'm happy to see it, but don't
it doesn't help. Yeah, that's cool. Good call.
And it should not be attached to this idea that if you build in public, you should share your numbers because I think that's horseshit.
Well, I laugh at it. I giggle at it because my family business, we basically outsource a lot of the administration and financial administration for other businesses around town. So I know a lot about finances and how businesses work, and I just laugh at it because it's an irrelevant measure. It has zero meaning into what the value of something is. What if they're keen? If someone's really want to be honest, tell us what your monthly recurring profit is. Tell us what your monthly recurring expenses are. Tell us also how much time you're putting in, and then let's have a real decent, true conversation about where you really are at. Hey, anyway,
no, totally.
Yeah,
no, you're right though. Like with customer success and what we do at Use a lot, the most important metric, at least at the moment, that people track is NRR.
Yep.
Like your net recurring revenue. Yep. Like MRR's crap because like you just said, like if I have a services business, I can have 20K a month, but I have to keep finding a new 20K a month. And my MRR is 20K a month, but I have to keep finding it, which means my NRR is probably negative freaking whatever. And it's a bullshit business. Like it's not a great business. So like don't post your MRR. It's worthless. I want to see how much this business makes.
So Matthias sounds like he's spot on here. He's asked a really good question. So thank you, Matthias. And I think we've probably shared it with you. We've got a lot of ways to combat that. It doesn't really demotivate us. We just basically, well, it does, but we have ways of dealing with it. Put it out of our mind.
I want to actually add one thing which concerns Matthias's business as well, and also a shout out to a guy called Phil Keller, which is a Swiss indie hacker.
he's cool.
Both of these guys are doing businesses that are having a positive impact on the world. Like Matthias's business, if the listeners don't know, he's creating Oscar Stories together with Dima, another indie hacker in the space. And Oscar Stories is a tool to create with AI stories for your children where the children are part of the story.
It's beautiful.
Phil Keller is a guy who does a project. I've just had him on my podcast in episode 5, not released yet, but will come. He's doing Swiss. If a student tries to find an apartment in Switzerland somewhere, he has a website that crawls all the different websites that have posting for those, and then as a student you can find an apartment that you can afford and stuff, and in the city that you need. And he's still at 0 MRR. He's very open about this on Twitter. But just looking at MRR, both of these businesses are not unicorns right now. One of them is even at 0 right now. But they are providing so much value, which is completely invisible by just looking at the raw numbers.
Absolutely.
Right? And even if Phil never finds a way to get it from 0 to 100 or 1,000, 10,000, it's still going to be a valuable service for someone. So just looking at numbers is not the whole picture for a business, even though for a business it's also important, right? But for the indie hacker project, for the idea, it's not the only thing to look at.
Yeah, I love that.
To see value.
I love what you've just pointed out there, Tobias. We should be all celebrating each other's reasons for doing this and looking for and celebrating the positive things that we give back to the world. I love what you've just said there. Well done. Good call. Speaking of, awesome. Finding things that we love and having takeaways from this, it's time for the key takeaways to the panel today. So if you were to walk away from this session today, Colin, what would your key takeaway be?
I don't know now because we've talked about stuff and it's probably changed things. Look, I mean, I'll just go back to what I sort of wrote and hopefully it resonates or not. But to me, it's a journey. It always has been a journey, even before I knew it was going to be a journey, I think. And so, and the things I learned about exiting Social Pinpoint, I won't say it was life-changing money, but it was leveling up money. And I think that's something that, like, if you are starting out, don't get, and part of this is the MRR story and all that stuff, is don't be trying to make it, don't try and go out. I don't agree with the big bang sort of like, let's go out, try everything, throw everything at it. And if it works, it works. If not, like, we'll be billionaires, otherwise we'll lose everything. Like, I think it's so wrong. Providing you don't die early, which you shouldn't think about. If you followed our advice about looking after yourself and stuff like that, hopefully you can plan that you're going to be around for a while. So I think you're going to have lots of bites of the apple. So my thing is, like, the best thing you can do if you don't take a full-time job in this industry is learn to level up. And what I mean by that is just, build something that's an asset, that's a worth, and then, hopefully sell it and level up to the next one and do it again. And if you do that, you've got decades, you've got multiple shots to do that. And this is a different topic again, but I haven't done the maths, but I would guarantee, 90% guarantee, that if you do that, you're still going to be ahead of people who had a full-time job. Because I guarantee if I gave you a job for $300,000 a year, you're going to spend $2,999 of that every year. And you will go, I'm going 10 holidays. Whereas if I give you $100,000 a year and you build a business, you still might make $300,000 a year, but you've still got that $200,000 a year. Once, 5 years later, you sell it all, now it's worth $1.5 million or whatever. You've got that. Whereas your friend who made $300,000 a year for 5 years, hopefully you're following my maths, has spent all that.
There you go.
And so that's why I just want to say to people, like, level up and learn. It's not all about just don't compare the numbers. Think about the asset and how much value
Very good.
you can use down the track.
Well,
Anyway, different
Yeah.
podcast, but maybe Dan,
My
we can
key-
delve into the numbers down the
My
track.
key takeaway from this one is just do it because you enjoy it. I mean, motivation's important, and you've got to enjoy what you do. So pick an area to build that you enjoy. If you like the context in which you're building, that the motivation will follow. Look, I've been listening to what all you guys have been saying in the session today, and it has just been hitting me in the back of the head. You got to find things that you love, keep doing it because you enjoy it, and just stick at it like that. So that's the end of the key takeaways. We'll give you the honor, Tobias, of
hang on.
leaving us
Tobias
with your
has to do
own
it, yeah.
key takeaway for this, because this was your topic today. So Tobias, how about you?
So one thing that I'm taking away, which is very crucial, I think, and in my podcast we're always cutting one small little thing out as the intro of the episode, is Colin's advice: share valuable pieces, not numbers. Share failings, share your learnings, so but somebody else doesn't have to fall on the same problem. I think I have to reevaluate that. I have to tweet more about stuff like this again. I've done so in the past, but that's something I'm taking away. Try to do that again. Share more failings and learnings. The key thing for indie hacking and motivation, for me, the same as with you, Dan, is have fun, provide value. Like, have fun yourself, post about it, make videos about it, make blog posts, which I am doing usually, make tweets about it, and just show that you're having fun and try to make that the focus. If it makes money in the end, awesome, perfect. But it has to be fun in the journey, because the journey is going to be long mostly. And the thing that you said, Colin, with getting value added to yourself in the business side is the same for personal. Like, if I'm doing indie hacking for 2 or 3 years, I'm learning so much about technologies I haven't used or that I wouldn't have used if I just worked a full-time job or freelanced. That's adding value to myself. It's adding value to any business I'm starting later, right? I have a business that I tried to start up like 2 years ago, which completely failed, never launched. Perfect example how not to do it. But I learned a lot about Express and Node and databases and stuff that I've kept, and I've put my own value further with projects like that. So you're like the one thing to do in indie hacking, if anything other fails, if you never make money, is have fun with it, provide value to other people, and then you're learning anyway if you're successful or not. So you're going to have like more experience anyway.
Brilliant. I
even
love
if
it.
fails.
Yeah, I love that.
Key
And
takeaways.
that could right back to our first question, where it was like, what's the motivation? I think if you don't love learning, don't do
do it.
indie hacking.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been awesome. I think there's some excellent takeaways you've got there. Thank you. And Tobias, it's been an absolute pleasure having the opportunity to do a joint panel with you on this topic. You picked an awesome one. Thank you. Colin, as always, it's great doing these with you. And folks who are listening on the line today, either you're listening on the Code and Conquer podcast or you're listening to the Push to Prod podcast. Thank you for spending a lot of time with us. We've gone quite a bit into it, but I hope you've got a bit of value out of it. So thank you.
Awesome. Again, I'll just reiterate, thank you. Thanks for both of you guys. It's been really, really good for me and really good listening and meeting you. And hopefully everyone got something out of it. And I guess share the feedback with us too. I think we'd, not just us, but like you said, Tobias, other podcasts would probably want to do a similar thing. So we'd be up for it if anyone's wanting to have a chat and come up with some other topics.
100%. If any other podcast is listening and wants to do something similar or wants to do it with us, we're always open for this. I've really, really enjoyed this. I want to do it again. If you guys are up for it again for another episode, 100% doing that.
100%. Yep.
And then you can pick another topic. I've enjoyed this a lot. I hope we can do it more in the future with you guys and with other people.
Brilliant.
And that's it, I
Cool.
think.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks for listening in.
Well, enjoy your Friday. And thanks for
guys too.
staying up, Dan. Well, not staying up, Dan. It's Friday night now. We can enjoy it.
All right. We'll see you there.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
talk to you next time. Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.